Thank you for clicking in this video. In this gripping tale of survival, trust is shattered, fear takes hold, and escaping the shadows may be the only way to stay alive. Prepare yourself for a journey into the unknown, where the city's underbelly is more dangerous than anyone could have imagined, and survival is far from guaranteed.
The air was thick with tension, a palpable sense of dread that hung over the city like a storm cloud ready to burst. I stood at the edge of the subway platform, staring down into the yawning darkness of the tunnel. The usual hum of life, chatter, footsteps, the distant roar of a train, was absent, replaced by an eerie stillness that gnawed at the edges of my sanity. I wasn't supposed to be here, not this late, not with the city under siege. But I had no choice. It had started weeks ago, whispers of a strange illness spreading among the homeless and those who lived in the forgotten corners of the city. The media called it a virus at first, some new strain of flu or a mutated pathogen from the depths of the sewers. But this was no ordinary sickness. It wasn't long before the reports of violent outbursts began, people disappearing, entire sections of the city sealed off. And then the rumors, the ones that said the afflicted weren't dying but changing, becoming something else, something far worse. I had been working late that night, trying to keep my mind off the chaos, burying myself in work like I always did. The office was one of the last safe places, or so I thought. But when the lights flickered and the emergency alarms blared, I knew it was only a matter of time before the madness reached me. I grabbed my things and made for the exit, every instinct screaming at me to get out while I still could. The streets were deserted, an apocalyptic silence draping the city like a shroud. The subway was my only option, the last train still running, a final thread of normalcy in a world unraveling at the seams. I descended into the belly of the beast, the stale, damp air wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket. But as the train's headlights cut through the darkness, my relief was short-lived. The train screeched to a halt, its metallic groan echoing through the tunnel like a dying animal. The doors slid open, and I stepped inside, finding the car nearly empty save for a few scattered passengers. Their faces were a reflection of my own, a mix of fear, exhaustion, and the desperate hope that somehow we might escape whatever hell was brewing above. As the train lurched forward, the lights flickered again, casting our faces in ghostly relief. I could feel the eyes of the other passengers on me, each of us sizing the other up, wondering who might be infected, who might turn into one of those things. But it was the man at the far end of the car that caught my attention. His head was bowed, a hood obscuring his face, but something about him set my teeth on edge. He hadn't moved since I boarded, hadn't acknowledged the presence of anyone else. A cold shiver crawled down my spine, and I forced myself to look away. Minutes passed in silence, the train's rhythmic clatter the only sound. But then, something shifted. The air grew colder, the lights dimmer, and an unnatural darkness began to creep in from the edges of the car, swallowing the light, inch by inch. I could feel it, the presence of something ancient and malevolent, something that didn't belong in this world. The man at the end of the car finally moved, lifting his head ever so slightly. His eyes were a void, blacker than the darkness that surrounded us, and when he spoke, it was as if the words came from the abyss itself. "They're coming," he said, his voice a low, guttural rasp that sent a jolt of fear through my veins. "And they won't stop until they've consumed everything." Before I could react, the train screeched to an abrupt halt, throwing us all off balance. The lights flickered violently, and then died, plunging us into total darkness. Panic erupted, the passengers screaming, scrambling for the doors that refused to open. I stumbled forward, my hands grasping for anything solid in the black void. And then, the darkness moved. It wasn't just an absence of light, but something alive, something that slithered and crawled through the air, suffocating and oppressive. I could feel it pressing in on me, its cold fingers wrapping around my throat, squeezing the life out of me. I gasped for breath, my vision swimming as I fought to stay conscious. Suddenly, the lights blinked back on, and the darkness retreated as quickly as it had come. The train car was a scene of chaos. Passengers sprawled on the floor, their faces pale and contorted with fear. But the man in the hood was gone, vanished as if he had never been there. The train resumed its journey, the city rushing past outside, but something had changed. The air felt thicker, heavier, as if the darkness had left a part of itself behind. I could feel it inside me, a growing sense of dread that gnawed at my sanity, whispering that this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The train finally arrived at my stop, and I stumbled out onto the platform, my legs weak and unsteady. The station was eerily empty, the usual hustle and bustle replaced by a suffocating silence. I hurried up the stairs, my breath coming in ragged gasps, desperate to escape the underground nightmare. But as I emerged onto the street, I realized that the nightmare had followed me. The city was in chaos, the streets filled with the sound of distant sirens, the flicker of fires casting an ominous glow against the night sky. People ran in every direction, their faces masks of terror, and above it all, I could hear a low, guttural growl, a sound that sent a chill down my spine. I turned a corner and froze. The street ahead was filled with them, creatures that had once been human, their bodies twisted and deformed, their eyes glowing with a feral, vengeful light. They moved with unnatural speed, tearing through the city like a plague, their hunger insatiable. And at their head, leading the charge, was the man from the train. His hood pulled back to reveal a face that was no longer human. I knew then that there was no escape. The city was theirs now, and they would stop at nothing to reclaim what they had lost, to take revenge on those who had forgotten them, who had pushed them into the shadows. I could feel the darkness closing in around me again, its cold fingers wrapping around my throat, and I knew that it was only a matter of time before it claimed me too. But I couldn't give in. Not yet. There was still a chance, a slim hope that I could find a way out, a way to survive. I turned and ran, my heart pounding in my chest, the sound of the creature's growls echoing in my ears. The city blurred around me as I raced through the streets, my mind a whirl of fear and desperation. I could feel them closing in, their presence like a weight on my back, dragging me down. But I kept running, driven by a primal instinct to survive, to escape the horror that had consumed the city. I turned another corner, and there it was, a building old and decrepit, its windows boarded up, its walls covered in graffiti. It was a place I had passed 1,000 times without giving it a second thought, but now it was my only hope. I burst through the door, slamming it shut behind me, and collapsed against the wall, my chest heaving as I struggled to catch my breath. The building was silent, the only sound the pounding of my heart in my ears. But I knew they were out there, hunting me, waiting for the moment to strike. I staggered to my feet and moved deeper into the building, my footsteps echoing through the empty halls. The place was a labyrinth of dark corridors and empty rooms, each one more foreboding than the last. I could feel the darkness pressing in on me, the air thick with the stench of decay and rot. But I couldn't stop. I had to keep moving, to stay ahead of them, to find a way out. My mind raced as I searched for something, anything that could help me, but there was nothing. Just the darkness and the cold, unfeeling walls closing in around me. And then I saw it, a door at the end of the hall, slightly ajar, a faint light spilling out from within. I moved towards it, my heart pounding in my chest, my hands trembling as I reached for the handle. But as I pushed the door open, what I saw inside made my blood run cold. It was a room, small and cramped, with walls covered in newspaper clippings and photographs. At the center of the room stood a man, his back to me, his hands working feverishly on something I couldn't see. But as I stepped closer, I realized what it was. He was building something, a device of some kind, intricate and terrifying. The man turned then, and I gasped. It was the same man from the train, his eyes black as the void, his face twisted into a mask of rage and hatred. "You shouldn't have come here," he growled, his voice sending a shiver down my spine. "But now that you have, you'll never leave." He lunged at me, and I barely had time to react, stumbling backwards as he grabbed me, his grip like iron. I struggled, fought with everything I had, but he was too strong, too fast. I could feel the darkness closing in again, the cold fingers wrapping around my throat, squeezing the life out of me. And then, just as I was about to give in, to let the darkness take me, I saw it, a glimmer of light, faint but growing, cutting through the black like a knife. The man recoiled, his grip loosening, and I seized my chance, wrenching myself free and diving for the door. I ran, faster than I ever had, the light growing brighter with every step. The darkness screamed in rage, its icy grip retreating as the light consumed it, banishing it back to the void from whence it came. I burst out into the street, the cold night air hitting me like a slap in the face. But I was free. I had escaped the darkness, the man, the creatures that had taken the city. I had survived. But as I stood there, gasping for breath, I realized that the city wasn't saved. The darkness was still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for its chance to strike again. And when it did, there would be no escape for any of us.
If you want to watch another story, there is another video appearing on your screen now. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more spine-chilling stories.